knowing how it got to be typed. Eddie Mae, could you tell how he wrote it?
So didn't have to.
I tell you, could you read the last one and then read the
Last
date
part.
on it? And then
The
Eddie
date.
Mae, you tell us how he wrote it. Okay?
The date is January the 14th, 1935. And if you can answer this letter and explain your position, I would be pleased to receive an answer. But if you cannot do this, I don't care to hear from you. My address is International Street, Hogansville, Georgia. J.M. Zimmerman.
If he got an answer, I don't remember. Leon said he did. But I know, I told him that night Gene Talmadge would never see that letter. They'd just throw it away. He said, well, he bet he would see it. I don't know, he got to type it. I didn't know it was typed.
Well, if he answered it, it would be in the archives, in Georgia archives.
Well, he made a lot of mistakes. He wanted to spell some big words. Boy, he wanted to make it big.
It doesn't indicate who typed
Well, we
it.
called him a malicious. Let me see what was it. Some kind of liar.
Okay, now here's a letter which your grandfather wrote to Roosevelt. Now, so you just repeat what I said, what you would.
All right. To F.
No, just say, here's a letter.
Oh, and here's a letter that my grandfather wrote to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This is dated December the 28th, 1935. Mr. President F.D. Roosevelt, Washington, D.C., dear sir. I am writing you a few lines in order to tell you a few things. I am a poor man, have worked hard all my life for a livelihood. I have always believed in the brotherhood of man. I was reared on a farm. My father was uneducated. He could not read nor write, but was honest and a successful farmer. My mother was also uneducated. The first school I ever attended, she attended with me. They taught me that honesty was the best policy, and I have endeavored to live honestly in the sight of all men, and as much as possible live peaceably with all men. I believe in the principles of Christianity, but I do not believe in every kind of religion or sect called Christianity. But as you would that men should do unto you, do you even unto them. I was never under arrest in my life until during the textile strike, when Talmadge sent troops to Newnan, Georgia, and had men and women, including my daughter and myself, placed in a detention camp. We were herded in like cattle, the women in a barn and the men in a barbed wire pen. Guards were placed around us with guns. This was not because we had committed any crimes or violence, but because he wished to break the strike and keep us in slavery to the mill owners. If the mill owners had complied with the code, we would not have had a strike. I wish you could visit these mills in person or in the person of a spy. You could learn the true conditions of things. I think we had the strike almost won when you had it called off with the understanding that a mediation board would settle the trouble after a fair investigation, and the mill owners you said are commanded that they would return all strikers to work without discrimination. Now, what has been done about it? Nothing. We are in worse condition now than before the strike. Mill owners have defied the law and your orders. A part of the workers have had to continue to almost starve, and part of them were returned to work and fired in a few days on account of union affiliations. Some of them have had to go to work on the CWA for 15 PWA for 15 and 20 cents per hour, and only get a few hours per week or month. They cannot feed, much less clothe their families. What is this country coming to? As long as people only get a few hours per week to work and are made to give an extortionate profit on all that they produce and pay the same profit on all that they buy, what are they to do? They must either take something, steal something, or if they can, buy something on account and never pay for it. All this is bad. There ought to be some plan devised by which the workers can protect themselves against extortions. I think there could be. I thought you had a plan. I think that every child born into the world should have equal opportunities at the resources of life according to their ability. I herewith include a copy of a letter that I addressed to Eugene Talmadge several days ago, but he has not replied to me. Of course, I did not expect a reply. I do not think if we had the proper form of government, we could be happy. Excuse me. I do think if we had the proper form of government, we could be happy. We have the resources of life, land, and machinery, and everything else we need to produce the necessities of life, but the few have corner on all the resources of life, land, and everything else, so they take a profit on all we produce and make us pay a profit on all we buy. Therefore, the producers cannot feed, clothe, and school his children, as they should all the people, and there should be a limit on the amount of land anyone should possess. No one should be allowed to possess more land than he or his immediate family can cultivate and pasture and for wood purposes, and I think that much in everyone's right that comes into the world. Under such a form of government, everyone could have a place for his home and family. He would always have something to do if he wished to work, but as long as the workers have no home nor land, they must be robbed of most of what they produce. This will continue to produce crime and disrespect for law because they know that a lot of laws are unjust and unequal, and the wealth of the world continues to concentrate into the hands of the few. We claim to have a democratic or republican form of government, but you know we haven't any such government. Our present form of government under existing laws is monopolistic and capitalistic. We must get back to a democratic and majority rule instead of a minority rule by the rich, or rich and poor alike will soon be no more for so far as this world is concerned. I think it's a shame to know that our mothers of this land are forced to go into the mills and other places of employment in order to help their husbands support their families, because the workers have never had a fair deal. Excuse me. Mothers are forced to leave their children many times with Negro women with whom they would not, but who they must help with their husbands when they cannot get work in order to get by. I'm not so well educated, but I have common sense. Sincerely yours, J.M. Zimmerman. And you know, he said he wasn't an educated man, but he was self-educated, and he probably read as much and kept up with politics as much as anybody.
Pop taught school right after that.
But what he's saying there is not a democratic government. He's talking about socialism.
Yeah,
But he's describing conditions there which almost everybody we've talked to here.
They were pitiful. They really were.
But now, talking about working hard, I'd rather worked in the mill than the field. If I'd had my choice, I'd rather worked in the spinning room than in the cotton field.
Why?
I just didn't like to pick cotton.
That's a good reason.
Now, this is, and all of you tell me this, he describes conditions there of not only exploitation, but he describes discrimination, which a lot of people are denying now. Why
Well,
that contradiction? Here's somebody whom you knew and you had respect for saying one thing, and yet everybody we talk to says something else. Why is
Well, I don't know why Papa thought working in the mill was so terrible, because he let us go to work at 14. Papa was a good man, honest man. That's the way he felt about it, but I never did feel like I was poor. I didn't have nothing to eat. I always had plenty to eat and as much to wear as anybody in our
Everybody
So-
you knew was in the same boat.
I never did feel sorry for myself.
You don't know you're
I
poor
thought-
unless you see somebody who's rich, and you didn't see anybody.
At
did you?
East Union, if somebody new come to the mill to work, and the ones in that department didn't know who they wouldn't ask who they were and where they come from. So we all knew each other at East Union, just about all of us.
Who do you think he was talking for when he said those things?
Honestly, I don't know.
I think he was talking for himself. You know, I've heard a lot of stories about my grandfather.
Cause Papa
And-
never worked in the mill himself.
And Aunt May and them know that I don't agree with a lot of the positions he took. He was a hard man. He was very stubborn, a good word. Hard, pig-headed. I mean, he made up his mind, and nothing in the world would change it.
What about Mr. Baker? He describes
He was a
him.
nice fellow, but they did lay him off. That's true. I don't know, did that refer to the union?
They said
What?
it said that he would not give the union members hell like he was told to do,
Well-
and he was laid off because he wouldn't do it.
Oh, now this is the way I heard it. There was Mr. Crowder and the man that worked downstairs. Mr. Crowder was overseer, and the man that worked downstairs. Wait a minute, that was after Earl Hamer was.
After.
There's
Crowder
two
was
men
here.
worked Mr. Baker out of a job to give Gene Williams his place. But they live next door out there. That's what Miss Baker told me.
Are you suggesting that there was another reason for Mr. Baker losing his job?
Well, that's what Miss Baker told me, that it was they just wanted to give Gene Williams his
I
job.
see.
He must have drank, he got drunk. They had somebody watching him. Mr. Baker got drunk and they fired him. Gene
We were
Williams-
talking to a gentleman today who said that there was a lot of snitching in the mills.
What kind of snitching?
Telling on each other. People telling stories on each other.
I didn't know nothing about that either.
What do you think he meant by that?
I don't know.
Who was it?
I always had friends in the mill. And I practically knew everybody that worked in the department I did.
How long after you went to Atlanta did you start working back in the mills?
As soon as I got home.
Now, could you say that so in a complete sentence so I don't have to hear my voice?
I went back to work when we got home from Atlanta.
And did people talk to you or how
Some
did
of
they treat
them.
you?
Some of them. There was friction. There wasn't anything, they didn't tell you how they felt, but you knowed how they felt. In the church, in the neighborhood, and in the mill. The ones that wasn't for the union was dead set against it. They started seeing Ruby McCurry, neighbor next door, out to rest one day, and she said, "You mean to tell me that you gonna let that old union girl work and sending me out?" I don't like to hear that.
Okay, I want to change the subject. I want each of you to tell me the funniest story that you recall about
Careful walking.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now, could you think back to Hogansville in that time, and you could tell some stories that would give the audience some idea of what it must have been like to live here. But I'd like to have it funny, humorous if you could, about the band, about the movies, about your parties, anything like that. And when did you come to Hogansville?
I'd pass.
1951.
No, that's a little late.
Mhm.
Okay?
I don't know if I was born in 42. I don't remember too many of those old stories, I guess. Most of the stories I heard, or I know of, I heard. But the funniest story has got to be about Papa's race. My grandfather, Uncle Renda's father, who was C.J. Parham, and Papa Zimmerman were about the same age. And they called each other Old Man Zimmerman and Old Man Parham, although neither one of them would admit they were the oldest. So they decided they were going to have a race one day to see who was the oldest. And they were going to run around the block. And Papa Zimmerman just took off like a house afire, running away. And Big Daddy, he just plodded along. Well, Papa Zimmerman got tired and had to sit down.
He got a coughing spell.
Yeah, and Big Daddy passed him in one, so it's kind of like a tortoise in the hare. But people didn't have television and everything.
Papa had chronic bronchitis and he took a coughing spell.
And-
Big Daddy passed him.
And Charlie Parham was the Talmadge man, and Mr. Zimmerman was
Yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to it, and it would get loud when they would argue about it. So nobody ever
Well,
won.
when Boots and Leon married, several different ones told Boots and Leon that Papa and Mr. Parham better not meet each other in a car.
They both drove right down the middle of the road and wouldn't move over for nobody. But they really liked each other. But my mother says that if they were talking and they agreed on something, then one of them would switch sides just so they could argue.
They didn't believe
They
in
would absolutely not agree.
different politics. Mr. Parham, Papa's against him. Papa's for him, Mr. Parham against him.
And if they were both for, one of them turned against it.
But now, as far as when we first moved here, I lived at East Newell 9 years, and I just didn't give it nothing about getting acquainted with nobody. I was homesick, but I wouldn't admit it. But all the rest of them go over here to the picture show on I think it's Wednesday night.
Community building.
But now, I didn't care nothing about going to the picture show. So Reuben married I think we'd been here about 8 months. And he married a girl same age as me. So me and I'd go down to Louise's. We'd make candy or pop popcorn or something like that. While the rest of them, when they'd come from the picture show, they'd stop and eat ice cream at the drugstore. But I stayed at home most of the time.
And Aunt Louise was like a member of the family. She still comes back from California, and instead of staying with her family, she stayed with Aunt May and Mama, because she was like a sister instead of a sister-in-law.
All right. Wanted to help the person in the next shift.
Never did want to leave a job behind.
She was also the fighter in the family.
I don't know why I acquired that name.
She would run home from school and touch a back doorstep and then go back, front doorstep, excuse me. And nobody messed with any of the 11 Zimmermans because this one took care of them. That was a long time ago, wasn't it, Aunt May?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
long, daytime, and Mama taught him at night. But he did like to read. And after he quit teaching school, he was Wasn't never ordained, but he is Methodist preacher.
Brenda, you were 14 years old. You were probably working in the store. Etta May once told me that that the news of them all getting herded up and sent to Fort McPherson spread around this mill village rather quickly. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that, if you recall that.
I don't recall it. I knew they were there, and that they were in Fort Mac. They were in we heard they were in the barbed wire fence in Fort Mac.
I wasn't in no barbed wire fence.
Well, that's what we heard here. I didn't know where they were, but that's what we heard, but we didn't. That's all I knew about it. I didn't hear.
But now we had a supervisor. That hadn't been explained. The day after we got there that evening. We didn't have a supervisor that night, but Miss Howell come out the next day. She was a policewoman, and she looked after us best she could. But one of them, they had a guard in front of the barn all the time.
Could any of you render, you were here, and I'm sure you can imagine, how do you think this affected the community?
Brenda was a little boy.
Okay.
I was 14. I wasn't
Was
too
you?
little.
I didn't know that.
I wasn't too small.
I didn't know you was that old.
In terms of intimidation, how did them being arrested like that?
Didn't affect
Pop
any
made
that I
it
knew
sound
about.
terrible, but
It didn't affect anybody in town about that. They didn't think it. Hold it against them or showing them for that I remember. I don't remember because we were up here at the store up the head of the street here, and
they even wanted Mr. Palm to join the union. Those men that organized. They asked merchants, everybody else. Anybody they could.
But as far as knowing who was a member of the union and not a member, I don't even remember. I don't remember who was rabid in the union. I don't remember anybody that was a union member. I didn't know who they were.
I think people saw it as a way of helping to improve things here, rather than, I keep saying it.
But now,
instead of joining the union and trying to help everything, they thought if I can join this and I can get better working conditions, and actually what they were looking for were hours. They just weren't getting any hours at the mill. They didn't have any money.
one short time a lot.
Yeah.
But now, as far as they keep telling how poor we were,
No poor
Well-
than anybody else, were you?
now, when I come home from school, I'd have to change out of my school dress and go to the mill. I started going to the mill when I was 9 years old to help lowball and carry. But as far as not having any clothes, we didn't have a lot of things, but we in the same. Everybody's about the same. Is what I'm trying to say. I didn't think about being, like Papa's letter read, like we was almost slaves. I didn't look at it like that. Because I had a good time in the mill. If we didn't have a party scheduled somewhere, we'd give somebody a surprise party
Why did you join the union then?
to help working conditions. That's what it was for.
Did you join it because of Papa?
I don't know. But I know Papa wasn't supposed to join it. Mr. Palmer wasn't. He didn't join it. But they took anybody in they could get on the road.
These organizers,
Didn't matter who
the
they were.
organizers that came, I know they had the organizers there, but they evidently convinced
Even tried
Homer to
They tried to get some of the merchants uptown
To,
to join.
was a leader among the people, and
Well, Homer Welch was a good leader. It was those two men that come organized I'm talking about. home and live and spent all their savings
Yeah,
trying to keep it going. But getting back to working conditions, I went to the mill. I went to help low volunteer. And when they put me on the job, they had gone to running this better cotton, and you're supposed to twist the ends up in the spinning room where I'd adapt them. So I had to go back and learn over. But I was put on a job when I went to work. Of course, I had to go back, learn how to twist up
you
ends.
should never quit twisting them up.
I know.
Whether good or bad cotton, it never should have quit that practice.
Roger, how long have you been aware that your family, they didn't just get arrested, they got arrested, they didn't just get arrested, obviously.
I've probably known it. I don't know. I may have been 20. First time I remember hearing the story, but like I said, the story was something funny because here's 8 May who doesn't do anything, and the first time I remember the story, her getting arrested was just unbelievable. You know, there's a lot of people in the family that you could have said, well, yeah, they may have, but this would have been the last one. Her and Mama.
What?
Okay, you want to ask that again?
Yeah. Before you roll.
I don't work. I retired when I was 63 years old. I'll be 95 in September.
85.
85.
Don't get old on me.
I don't work, Judy. I stay out Leone most of the time.
Yeah, I don't, even knowing about it, I don't guess I ever really think about it as anything that just a little blip there that they were frustrated, and I understand that frustration, and they just wanted things better, and this was a way of doing it.
Well, Roosevelt was wanting people to organize, said it over and over.
Yeah, but what he wanted you to do, I believe, was organize but not get involved.
How you going?
But ain't maybe the way politicians talk and do things don't really have anything to do with real life. Roosevelt, Gene Talmadge, they did what they wanted to do or what the money told them they should do.
Like Bush is doing that.
You know, Gene Talmadge says,
Roosevelt
"I'll never send out the
pulled us
guard
out of a
against the
hole
strikers," but he did the
if
day after he
anybody
was
ever did.
elected. So
He
it was
put
just talk.
boys to work.
You know, if I'd been back then, I would have I'd been on that truck with them. Or at least I like to think
This
I would.
mill's on short time 18
I
months.
never heard of anybody having problems with each other because of that strike. It just, once it was over, once things started getting better, people got back to work, it just dissolved.
Just a fact of history.
Didn't do it.
Yeah, it's just
Didn't do us too much
Something
good.
happened.
it's kind of like getting caught doing something, but everybody forgives you.
Well, I'm not sorry. I
Well,
joined
down-
you.
Well, I didn't mean that, but
I'm not
nobody's
sorry
holding
of
a grudge
And I'm
that I
not-
knew about.
Or discussed it.
Down through the
Yeah,
years, we've
and
had
I don't know if that's why they didn't discuss. I wonder if it wasn't that important afterward, or if maybe they didn't want to discuss it because they may be talking to somebody on the opposite side.
Well, I let people know that. I didn't care who knows I joined the union because I was for it. I
But-
still am.
But
But
the,
what you were for, you wouldn't.
Could you say that again?
I joined it because I believed in it.
But when they had organizing and down through the years, on
Not
right
that
on up,
kind
did
of
you?
organizing.
But did you ever join the union when they came back on several occasions? I'd say half a dozen occasions they came back, tried to organize again.
Nobody ever asked me to join it.
And after all of these organizing instances we've had since that time, 1934, the people in the mill, after they had the strike vote and the union was beat,